Okay. Hooray, we're recorded. So thank you, Catherine, so much for coming and joining us for our monthly webinar trainings. We just started putting together a funding strategy module either last week or the week before. So we are all squarely in that phase of looking for grants. So the timing is excellent. And when I asked what everybody wanted to talk about, it was definitely a deeper dive on Instrumentl. So this is perfect timing.
Great, yeah, my pleasure.
And then just because I don't have great, let's just make sure, I'm gonna mute everybody else if you're not, just being aware. I'll mute you. Looks nice, I see Steve on the line. Hi, Steve. Except I can't figure out how to mute you, so just mute yourself. Cool, all right, sweet. Well, I wanted to do a quick intro for Catherine and then get you kind of oriented with this group. And then I'll let you take it away.
Sure thing.
Okay, so if you'll let me, got way too many notes up. Okay, so Catherine co-founded, for everybody else that may not know this, Catherine co-founded Instrumentl with Gary Manglik, is that how you would say her last name?
Manglik, yeah.
Okay, and Angela Brerin about 6 years ago. And so she's experienced firsthand the challenges of finding grants as well. She used to work as a fundraiser for UC Berkeley, and also, did you volunteer or did you work for the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology?
I worked for both of those museums, the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology and the Botanical Gardens at UC Berkeley. So those are the two organizations that I was fundraising for, in addition to others in the past, yeah.
Okay, so you've cut your teeth on some really tough projects. And then you also bring the perspective, which I love because we have students that come from this angle too, of being a researcher. I presume some of the research that you did was grant funded?
Yes, yeah, I funded most of my research through grants before I kind of moved into the nonprofit world.
Perfect. Yeah, so you earned, so Catherine earned her master's from John F. Kennedy University in Museum Studies, so that's why I thought of Cali, and her Master's of Science in Environmental Studies from the University of Victoria in British Columbia, and your Bachelor's of Agriculture in Environmental Science degree from McGill University in Quebec. So it's cool because we have some Canadians in our course as well. And I'm also excited because I imagine that means the future of Instrumentl will hopefully include Canada grants more and more.
One day, yeah, I would like that. I live in the US now.
But I know you're in the US now, but I was like, oh, it'd be so awesome to eventually have the grants included.
It would be, for sure.
So yeah, you did research on red squirrels in the Yukon and protected piping. Is it plovers?
Plovers.
Plovers. And I had to look up what a piping plover was, and it's this adorable bird. So if anyone else was curious what the heck a piping plover was, it's this adorable little thing. Learn something every day. So yeah, on top of that, Catherine's on the East Coast and has a 1-year-old daughter, and that's pretty much everything I've learned from creeping on the internet about you, Catherine.
Great. It's actually my son, but that's okay.
Oh, your son, for some reason.
I have a daughter on the way, actually, so I'm expecting another one in September.
Okay, awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm all in.
Awesome. Okay. Well, just so everybody, can you start throwing in the chat box kind of what describes you so that we can get Catherine up to pace on kind of who we all are. One, did you come into this course wanting just to be better at grant writing because it's a part of your current role? 2, were you learning for self-development or to start a side hustle and improve your hireability in the future? 3, were you just interested in volunteering and exploring, or other? And if other, please write it in. So Kimberly and Alicia are 1. Some 1 and 2s, looking for self-development and for your role. JW, hi, and Katie, seeing a bunch of people come on. Yep, Bonnie has started a freelance business already up and running, which is awesome. Liz is doing a little bit of volunteering as well. Terry.
Meredith, say the things again.
Sorry, the options again?
Yeah.
Yeah, so number 1, you're learning to be better at your current role in work. 2, you're learning for self-development or improving your hireability in the future. 3, you're just exploring or volunteering. And 4 would be other. Nice. Cool. So 1 and 1s, 2 and 3s. So we're kind of an evenly split group. I'd say, yeah, like 20 to 30% are doing this to develop, like as a self-development for better hireability or to start their own side hustle. And then others are already kind of getting into the world of grant writing or already are in it and are just looking to be better at it and maybe never had formal training. So hopefully that helps you kind of understand the split of who makes up this course.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Nice.
Yep.
Sweet. And then I just want to gauge this too with everybody so we know where we're at. What is your level of familiarity with Instrumentl? So maybe not all of you got to that section in the module where I talk through how to do a search query, which is not much of what we're going to focus on today, but I just wanted to check. So you have Instrumentl access now and you've set up a search. That would be number 1. Number 2, you've never used Instrumentl or seen inside of it before. 3, you haven't tried it out yet, but you will be later on the course. Or 4, you use a different database or some combination. Carol, what do you use? And then Kimberly's 3, lots of 2s, haven't used it yet. And then 3 and 4.
I usually use grant.gov, grants.gov.
Okay. Makes sense. She's at the tribe in on Prince of Wales Island in Southeast Alaska. So
yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Ronnie's had access, setting up a search. Steve has, Anna's using grants.gov too, also a tribe, Garibaldi's native tribe. So that also makes sense. Cool. Okay, well that kind of gives you the lay of the land. We're kind of all over the place, but they do at least have the video on how to set up a search query effectively. So I'm hoping that we can, cover all the other things that Instrumentl is capable of. So I'm going to stop sharing and give you host capabilities so that you can share your screen. You should have that now.
Okay, let me try. Great, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, Amanda.
What was that?
You know how you always forget to record. Are you recording this one?
Thank you. I know I do. And then I have to read video. Yes, I am. Thank you. I'm glad everyone's got my back on this. Yep.
Well, yeah, first off, thanks so much for inviting me. We love Meredith and follow everything she does closely. So this is really exciting to be able to do kind of our first webinar for her. I think, yeah, it's really helpful to know that you're kind of a mix of freelance like grant writers and also folks working for tribes or nonprofits. So I'll try to kind of speak to both of those worlds in terms of how to best use Instrumentl if you're trying it out through her course. And I'll also focus more on kind of the other parts of how Instrumentl works aside from setting up your initial projects. I'll just kind of briefly go over some like tips, some higher level tips related to like whether you're a grant writer or working at a larger nonprofit, things like that. I'll just give some like really brief tips on that, but otherwise I'll leave it to Meredith. I also have a detailed kind of article that I've written about how to set up like a really good search. So I can share the link with Meredith or with everyone so that you guys always have access to that. It is in our help center as well. But it is like one of the most important things in terms of like using Instrumentl well. You want to make sure that your search query is set up correctly so that you're actually getting the best grants, obviously. So it is something to spend time on when you're setting up your account. And then I think Meredith said, like, feel free to answer or ask questions while I'm giving the tour, and then Meredith will stop me to go over specific questions as I go along. So feel free to, ask questions, whether or not you've used Instrumentl before. If something comes up, just feel free to ask. So should I just dive right in?
Let's go for it. Yeah.
All right. Great. So for those of you who have not seen Instrumentl yet, the screen that you see here is kind of what you see when you first log in, and it's called your grant tracker. So it's basically the replacement for what many of you may have been using to track grants in the past, which would have been just maybe a spreadsheet, which is what we found to be most common with how grant writers or nonprofits track their grants, you know, like either setting up like your grant calendar for the year moving forward, or even tracking your historical funding. So you might have a different tab on your spreadsheet for every year, or a different spreadsheet for every year. So all of that can now be managed in one place on Instrumentl through your grant tracker, which can be really helpful because if, you know, people change positions, you don't have to keep this up to date like you would have to keep a spreadsheet up to date. It kind of automatically helps you stay on top of deadlines and tracking funder responses and things like that without having to like remember to update your spreadsheet by the end of the year, and losing information if people change jobs and take over the grant writing role. So it's just like all like the organizational memory is in one place, which is nice. So the way that you'll see here on my, this is a kind of test account, so I wanted to make sure that it was as detailed as possible to kind of reflect what you can, all the things that you could do with Instrumentl. So keep that in mind. Yours probably does not look like this when you first log in. It's going to be empty because you won't have any grants saved yet. But on the left-hand side of your screen right here, you can see all the different projects that I've set up for this account. You can think of a project on Instrumentl like you would a saved search on like a traditional database. So it's just like a series of criteria that we use to match you with grants. I'm going to work in the senior services project for this particular webinar. But you can add new projects easily, and you can edit your project at any time here at the top right of your screen using the edit project button. So it's something that's very flexible. One of the great things about Instrumentl is, so you can see here the grant tracker, and then the matches tab. The matches are the results that you receive from your project setup. Once you've set up your search or your project, you can receive your matches. So make sure I'm in the right. Not sure why. I think I'm actually on the wrong internet. Pardon me?
Sometimes screen sharing too, it just sucks it up, makes it really slow.
Yeah, I might switch out my
Go for it.
Wi-Fi. Just give me a second.
While you do that, I'm just going to plant a question with you that you don't have to answer right now, but I think you'll, when you get to it.
Okay, I might lose you for a second, so just give me one second.
All good.
Okay, I'm back. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, but it doesn't look any different, so just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah, refresh. I see. Cool.
Oops. Okay. Don't know why it made me want to relog in. Okay.
Put you out of your test account, I think.
Yeah, let me find it again.
Oh, good.
Sorry about that. For some reason, where I live, my I keep logging into automatically my neighbor's Wi-Fi, and then it causes issues because it's not as strong. I forgot to check before I started this. All right, here we go. I'll try that again.
I forgot I have a webinar right now that I need to listen to.
Oh. Pardon me?
I think that might be an accident. Everybody muted? All right, I think we're good.
Okay, there we go. Cool. All right, we're back. So, senior services. So what was your question?
Just whenever you get to this, for the freelancers that are out there, is there a way to share individual projects with a specific client?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, before I dive into the matches, I'll quickly mention, so if you're a freelance grant writer, what most of our customers do is they set up a different project for each customer or for each of your clients, because you can that way keep your information separate. Currently, we don't have a way to share individual projects with like one particular person. If you invite someone to your account, they can see all of the projects on the account. It is in our pipeline to build kind of a special account that's specific to freelance grant writers that would have that capability, but we haven't fully built that out yet, but it's definitely something that we know would be desirable. Sometimes if like your client has their own account, that way you can kind of separate, you can be added to their account and have your own as well. But yeah, at this time you can't invite your client specifically only to their project.
One thing though you can do, I guess that would be awesome, is at least you can still do that, share the report, right? So they can.
Yes, yeah, so I can show you how you can share specific grants with like your client, like if you wanted them to review something or even to share an update or reports about the work that you've been doing. There's a way to do that without giving them access to your account if you want to keep your account kind of private to yourself as a consultant or a freelancer. Yeah, so I'll go into the reports more in detail a little bit later. And then in terms of some other project tips, if you're a nonprofit, generally I would say that you want to set up searches that are different in their focus area. So it's a way to keep kind of your funnel, your pipeline of new prospects separate. So if you set up 2 projects, let's say, that are like K through 12 education and like after school education for K through 12 or something like that, you're going to get a lot of duplicate grants because the funding subjects are very similar. And if both projects are in the same location and have other similar characteristics, you're going to get a lot of duplicates. So generally, when you set up a project, think of keeping the projects separate via their focus area is usually my recommendation. So you might have one for like education grants, one for grants related to safety or animal welfare, depending on like this breadth of what your organization does. And a lot of organizations find it perfectly sufficient to just have one project that kind of covers their whole organization if like your mission is very focused in one particular area. It tends to work the best because then you just have all of your animal welfare related grants in one search. Great. So yeah, let's check out the matches tab. So this is the results that you get when you set up a project. For this particular project, I had 158 matches, so 158 active grant opportunities that met my criteria. One of the cool things about Instrumentl is that rather than just focusing on like static funder profiles, in terms of like search results, is that we build active grant opportunities. So you're seeing here, these are opportunities that you can apply to in some way. So they either accept an LOI unsolicited or a full proposal unsolicited. So there's not going to be any like 100% invite only funders in here or funders who don't have an active grant program. So these are all like actually actionable opportunities. And the list of active grants that we maintain in our database is constantly being updated. We probably publish in the area of like 50 to 100 new grants a week. And then any person, like once you set up a search, you will continue to receive new grants in your pipeline anytime we publish a grant that fits your particular criteria. So we've found on average that folks receive somewhere between like 1 and 2 new grants every 1 to 2 weeks. So it just depends on like the breadth of your search and like the subject area, if it's like a common funding theme or not. But it's something that, we really try to make as actionable as possible. And basically what we tried to do here with the matches is automate your prospecting so that you don't have to be looking, following a million different newsletters and searching on Google to find deadlines and actually like the opportunities that you can apply to. So we're doing that work for you. We're signed up to all those newsletters. We're in contact with all these funders. And what we do here with like all of these grants that we are tracking, like this, for example, is a grant from International Paper. So another thing I'll mention is that we pull together private funders, government funders, and corporate funders. Government is usually at the state and federal level. we plan on also including local governments, but we haven't gotten there yet. But I'll show you a way that you can add your own local government grants as well to your account. So once we locate like an active grant opportunity, like let's say this one, we take all the information about the grant from the funder's website and we consolidate it on what we call our grant pages, which is what you see here. So every one of these listings has their own grant page, and we make the organize the information in the same way from grant to grant, so that it's easy for you to quickly review, see if you're eligible, see if it's something that you're interested in, without having to go to the funder's website. So you only really go there once you know you're interested and want to do like extra research on the funder itself, or to find out more about the application. So you'll see like at the top summary information, like the deadline, the location information, and then more detailed information. This particular funder is a corporate funder, so they don't have a private foundation associated with them, which is why you don't see any 990 information. But if you click, like let's say on this next grant, the New York Community Trust, you'll see this tab here called 990 report. So this is a private funder, so they have to file a 990 with the IRS every year. So for all private funders, you'll be able to access 990 information directly from the grant page as well, about the funder. So what we do is we take the latest 990 filing and we create this kind of easy to read report with all that information. So you can see we pull out like assets and contact info and key people. And we also have all the forms that you can download directly here. And then below that, if they publish a list of past grantees in their, I don't think this one did, in their 990, you'll be able to see them listed. So let me try to find a different one. It depends on how their 990 looks like. Either you can download the PDF or you can just view the past grantees as a list. Sure, it's still being so slow, but I'll show you an example in a little bit.
And I show them a lot on the 990 stuff. We go deep on that.
So I won't spend too much time there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so anyways, you can, for some reason it's taking a long time to load, but you can view 990s for every single private foundation, which is nice, and do some research on them. Let's see here. So just for some more information around how we actually gather this grant information and keep it up to date. So for any funder that we have a grant for, so like let's say International Paper or the New York Community Trust, we actually have a tool or like a program that tracks this particular funder's website. And so if anything is updated on those pages that we're following, our content team gets like notification and we update our pages. So we really are focused on making this information as up to date and current as possible. So for instance, if they update their deadline, we immediately know and can update that and notify you. So you'll see here, there's a few deadlines that have like a little squiggly line under them. So for instance, this one, it says, anticipated deadline October 31st. So what we do is that we know this funder offers this grant every single year, but they haven't updated their deadline for 2020 yet. So they still have the 2019 deadline on their website. So until we've confirmed with the funder what the 2020 deadline is, it will be marked as anticipated. Once we confirm that, then it just goes to next deadline, like there's no anticipated a notification there. And if this is a grant that you're tracking, so let's say you've saved this grant because it's something that you're interested in, and they confirm the deadline and it's something different, so let's say they say, oh, actually the deadline is October 23rd this year, you will get an email about that update. So once we change our deadline according to their update, you'll receive an email that says, oh, this funder has updated the deadline for this particular grant. And these email updates will also apply if like a funder changes their funding focus areas in like a major way or something like that. So we really try to kind of automate that work for you so that you don't have to be constantly checking in with funders about their deadlines. It's something that happens automatically on Instrumentl. And so, yeah, once you get to your matches, some tips, I guess, to make your work more effective or efficient. A lot of our organizations who use Instrumentl really effectively will treat their matches kind of like an inbox. So, you know, pick a number of grants to review every week. Let's say you have time to review 10 grants a week or something like that. Start reviewing the grants in your matches and save any grants that seem even a little bit interesting. When you save a grant, it moves to your grant tracker, and that way you start building up this kind of short list of grants that you can do additional research on later. If you find a grant that you are not interested in for whatever reason, you can mark it as not interested, and it'll be removed from the list and go into this not interested folder here. And you can also write a note here to kind of describe why you're not interested in that funder so that you can always refer to it later, which can be helpful because sometimes, especially if you're working on a team, you may not know why someone discredited a particular funder. So it's helpful to be able to keep notes related to that. You can sort your grants in a variety of different ways. So you can sort, people often like sorting by deadline, obviously, because you can make sure you're not missing anything coming up really soon. Just note that when you sort by deadline, all the rolling grants are at the bottom. So those are the grants that don't have a specific deadline and tend to get fewer applications. So don't forget that those are towards the bottom. But yeah, so you can kind of process this list, and that way, once you get through the list of matches initially, you will only have to check back in once a new grant is added, and you'll get an email every Thursday. It's like a digest of any new grants that were added to your matches for your particular project that week. So you can check in and say, oh, what was newly added? Do I want to save it or remove it from my list? And just kind of keep this as a way to be always on the ball when it comes to new grant opportunities. Do you want me to go into any more detail? Any other questions related to the matches before we go to the tracker?
No, we cover this stuff pretty in depth.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the parts that we never talk about is what happens when you manage a grant. Like,
okay,
you actually are really running it.
Totally. Okay, great. Well, I'll move along then to the matches or to the tracker, not to spend too much time here. So yeah, once you've saved grants that you find interesting, they appear in your tracker. And the great thing about the tracker is you can use it to both manage your prospective grants, so kind of your grant calendar and your prospect list of grants that you plan on applying to or are considering applying to, or just need to do more research on in the coming year or two. But you can also use it to manage your historical funding opportunities. So if you work at if you work at an organization that has been writing grants for many years, you can store all that information in Instrumentl. And that same goes for if you're a freelance grant writer and you have your client wants you to help manage kind of their grant history, you could do it in here as well. So I'll start by going over how you might use the tracker to manage your grant calendar. So like what's happening this year and next year. So yeah, once you save grants, they automatically move into your tracker in order of deadline. So you can see I have like January, February, March. So it forms a calendar of sorts. And when you first save a grant, it goes in researching status is the status that it saves to your tracker as, unless you change it. So for any given grant, you can click on it and you can see here the grant page, just like you saw in the matches tab, but then on the right, we have a grant action section. So this is kind of what you use to manage a particular opportunity. So you can store notes related to the grant here. You can update the status. So this grant, for instance, I marked as planned, like I'm planning to apply to this grant in June. Once you apply, you can mark it as submitted. You can also mark it as won or lost once you hear back from the funder. And you can record how much you plan on requesting. And if you mark a grant as won or lost, you can also, as won, you can also record the amount that was awarded. And all that information will be collected to and feeds into like your reporting. So you can actually easily see like how much you've been awarded this year and things like that. For this right here, there's an additional, so every grant is going to have a deadline, which you can see here. So the next deadline for this particular grant is June 15th. However, there's also this field called submission goal. So this is like a personal deadline that you have for when you want to submit this grant. So you can see that this particular opportunity has many different deadlines in a year. They don't just have one cycle. So you could say, okay, I actually want to submit in December. I don't want to do the June deadline. So then you could change the submission goal to December, and it'll move, and we list the potential dates that the funder actually has here just to make it easier for you. You could say, I actually want to apply to this grant in December, and it'll move that grant to the December section of your tracker. So it allows you to kind of move things around as you want in terms of how you want to set up your calendar for the year. For all grants that you have in your tracker, you will receive automatic deadline reminders. So every Monday you get an email digest of any grants in your tracker that have a deadline coming up in the next month. And so you get that every week until the deadline is passed. In addition to that, you can also use what we call tasks. So this is a little task feature here. Tasks allows you to set up personal email reminders about a specific grant related to anything that you like. So let's say you wanted to get a reminder on the date that you wanted to start the proposal. So I know I want to start this proposal at the end of November. So then I would save that task. And so Instrumentl will now email me on November 7th saying start proposal. So I can, in addition to the automatic deadline reminders that Instrumentl sends you, you can also set up your own tasks. And it can be from anything from something like start a proposal to, contact the funder because I'm expecting to hear back from them at this time, or a report is due, something like that. And then finally here we have documents. So you can attach documents to a grant on Instrumentl. So this is a great way to keep all of your grant related work in one place. So anytime you submit a proposal, you can attach the proposal and any related documents to the grant itself, so that in the future, you can always click on this grant and see, oh, this is the submission I made in 2019, 2020, 2021. You'll have all that information in one place. And anytime you upload a document to a grant on Instrumentl, in addition to it being attached to that specific opportunity, it's also going to be synced into your document library, which you find here at the bottom left-hand side of your screen. So it'll have all the grants, all the documents that you've ever uploaded to a grant on Instrumentl, and you can also upload documents directly to this library, and you can give them custom titles here, like if you wanted to organize them in a specific way. And so this is a great way, like let's say you have documents that you use for every proposal and you work on a team at your organization. You can have, your board list and your mission statement and things like that. It's like a Dropbox just for your grants that you can kind of keep up to date more easily. So that's kind of all the different things you can do to your grants from your tracker. So you can see here, like I've created this tracker for 2020 and 2021 that has all the grants that I plan on applying to, I have applied to this year, or I've already submitted, but I'm just waiting to hear back from the funder. So you can see kind of my full year in grants and any notes that I have. You can see if you save a grant that has a rolling deadline, but you didn't give it a specific submission goal. So like here, for instance, I'll just click on this grant. This grant has a rolling deadline, so you can apply anytime. What you'll want to do for this is like give it a submission goal, like for when you would like to aim to submit this particular grant, and then it'll move to the appropriate place in your calendar. So that you can actually organize it properly. Otherwise, it'll just stay at the bottom of your tracker like this. So I just wanted to show you what that would look like. So you can always see which grants still need to be kind of planned for if you want to add them into your calendar, because you won't get reminders about these specific grants since they don't have any deadlines, any automatic reminders. And then, yeah, I think that's kind of quickly shows you how to plan your prospective calendar for the year. You'll see, and it's an easy way to see, like if there's any grants still in researching status, that can be a way for you to identify which grants you need to do more research on before deciding if you actually want to apply for it or not. So it's helpful to use this status versus planned, which you can use once you've like done the research and you're pretty sure you want to apply. It kind of separates those two kind of statuses for an opportunity. You can search your saved grants using the search portal here, and it searches all years. So if you're looking for a grant that you applied for in like 2017, it's in your tracker, you can still search for it here, even if you're in like 2020 or 2021. You'll see here that at the top of your grant tracker, you have your stats or your dashboard. So this reflects, these numbers reflect the years that you've selected. So here you can see all the years of grants that I have in my tracker. So my organization submitted grants, and this recording grants here from 2018, 2019, 20, and 21. But I'm currently showing 2020 and 2021. So the stats I see here are just from this year. So you can see so far this year I've won 42,000, but I have a goal of 250,000. So I have still a long way to go. But I've submitted this much worth of grants, and I'm still waiting to hear back from the funder on that. So it helps you kind of get a glimpse of how you're doing towards your goal. And the goal is totally flexible. Like you can customize the goal to be whatever you want for a specific year based on your fundraising plans. I'll go into reporting in a bit, but first I'll just quickly share how you would use Instrumentl to track your historical funding opportunities in addition to kind of your upcoming grants. So the first thing I'll mention, if you work for an organization that already has spreadsheets of grants that you've applied to in previous years, or even if you are a grant writer who has a client who has these kinds of spreadsheets, all you really have to do to get set up is use this Add Grant button and click on Upload Many Grants and actually upload your spreadsheet to the tracker. And our team will review that and add all of the grants for you in the appropriate years with all of your notes and everything, so that you don't have to do it yourself. So it's a way that we're just kind of helping you get started if you do have like all this data kind of sitting in spreadsheets and you want to get it onto Instrumentl. Alternatively, if you just have a few grants or you want to do it all yourself, you can add one grant at a time. So it would you'd pick the funder, and then you would pick a grant, and that grant, whatever grant you add, will be added as like a line item in your grant tracker in the appropriate year that you save it to. And another cool thing about this Add Grant feature is that this is what you can use to add literally any grant. It doesn't have to be a grant that you find on Instrumentl. Like I was mentioning, we don't currently support local government funders, at least automatically, in terms of like the grants that show up in your matches. So if you work with like a local government or even like a local business that doesn't have an official grant program, but they gave you a donation, you can add them here so that you can keep track of literally any opportunity, any grant opportunity in your tracker, whether or not it has been found on Instrumentl. So that's pretty handy there. So I'll also show you, so that's one way you can add a grant to like a prior year. Another thing you can do is, so let's say like this Tony Robbins grant is something that although I also applied to it this year, I have applied to it in previous years. You'll see on any grant that you save in your tracker, this Saved History tab here. So you can click on that at any time, and you can click on Save to Another Project or Year, and basically create another record for this grant in a previous year. So you can see that I've already created a record for this grant in 2019 and 2018. In 2019, I won the grant, and if I click on that, those stats appear here to the right, so you can see that I won $1,000. In 18, I lost the grant and I requested this amount. So it's a way for you to really keep track of what your history is with a particular funder, and you can actually do it directly from the grant page as well, in addition to instead of using the add grant button. Like if you already have that grant saved in your tracker, that's kind of an easy way to do it. And then I was mentioning also that I would show you how to share a grant with someone outside of your account. So let's say you come across this grant, or you've done research on this grant and you think it's a good fit for your client or whatever. You can use this little envelope button to share the grant with anybody. It does not have to be someone on your account. They're going to get an email with a link to the specific grant page, and what they see is, if you click on this little expand button, is they see the expanded grant page. So they're going to see this whole page. They can visit the website, they can see the 990, but they don't have to have their own Instrumentl account to see that. So that's how you can share one particular grant. And then I also mentioned with Meredith the reporting function. So if you, whether or not you work, at an organization, or if you're a grant writer and you need to report, to your board, or you need to report to your client what grants you've submitted this year, or how many grants you've won so far, or what funders have awarded you money in the past 3 years, you can use this share report button to do that. So I'll show you what you can do. Essentially, it will create a report based on the data that you have in your grant tracker, and you can customize it. So let's say, I'm going to pick the senior services project because that's the one I want to report on, but you could report on grants in multiple of your projects if you had multiple different searches there. I only want to see grants that I've submitted, won, or lost in 2020 and 2019. And then I'm going to create a report, and you can either download a PDF of the report, or you can download a CSV. So a CSV can be helpful if you wanted to manipulate the data in any way, or like create graphs, or add additional columns before you share the information with your board. But I'll just click on this on the PDF just so you can see a little bit in terms of how it would look. So you can see here kind of the summary of what I wanted to report on. And then you see all the grants, in 2020 that I submitted, won, and lost in order of deadline. Then also in 2019. And then it gives the kind of summary stats at the top there. So if you just want to share like specific information with your board or with the client, that's like an easy way to do it without having them to have access to your account. And then quickly, I know we're a little over time. Are we okay to have like a couple more minutes, Meredith? Yeah. I'll just quickly show this quick find feature. I'm not sure if Meredith has given you much context there yet, but so like I was mentioning here in your matches, that's like going to show you any active grant opportunities that fit your search criteria. But let's say you're just doing research on a funder, someone tells you about a funder, or you have a funder in mind, you want to just look up their 990, or you want to see if there is an active grant opportunity for that funder. This quick find portal searches all private foundations registered with the IRS, so it's like 100,000 foundations, as well as all of the active grants in our database. So you could just say, oh, I want to see like, let's see, the Tucker Foundation, I want to see their 990. You press search, and then it'll list any grant opportunity that we have that has that name, like the Tucker Foundation in it, as well as any like private foundation registered with the IRS called which you'll be able to see their 990 report. So like, let's say I click on that, I can view the 990 report for that funder if it will allow me to.
Maybe.
Or maybe not. Yeah, I'm guessing it's the screen sharing because it's not normally this slow. But yeah, I'll just click on one of these grant pages and maybe that'll be faster. But it'll open up like either the grant page or the 990 essentially for that particular funder. and you can, do your research that way. And if you open, there we go. Okay, it just took a while to load. So yeah, this is what I would see if I just clicked on like the Tucker Foundation from my notes here, and from the search, and I wanted to see the full 990. So this is where you can see like the history, the funders' history from 2018 from their 990 and where they gave. So most of their grants were in Texas. If you are doing research on a funder and you haven't saved this funder in your tracker yet, you can also do it directly from the 990 report as well. So you can just save that, even like if you didn't come across this in your matches, you can save it from here so that you can still have it tracked. Even if it's a grant that's like invite only, or it's a funder that you've been working with like personally that doesn't have like an active grant opportunity.
So I have a quick question then. So would the quick find mean that only will work if it's a foundation?
Well, it'll work for all foundations, and then if we have an active grant opportunity, it'll also show up. So
okay, so sometimes if you had the federal grant listed and you went and searched in here for that, you could in theory find it.
You could find it if it's an active grant opportunity. Yep. If it's expired, it won't show up in that search. I guess I could quickly mention about how we do the federal grants. So for federal grants, since I know that's important to many of you guys, we have a feed directly from grants.gov that we basically import any grant that's posted to grants.gov, and we build it, and it'll show up automatically in your results if it fits your criteria. Unlike corporate and private grants, where we kind of keep our grant pages active and have an anticipated deadline for the next year, just because we know like these funders don't change very frequently. When a federal grant deadline is passed and there's no future deadlines listed, that grant is archived. So if you've saved the grant, it'll still stay in your tracker, like you won't lose it. But if it was in your matches and you never did anything to that grant and the deadline is passed, it's going to actually go away from it's going to leave your matches because it's no longer an active opportunity that you can apply to. And the next year, if they repost that same opportunity or a related opportunity, it'll show up again in your matches and you'll get a notification about it. So unlike private grants, these federal grants are they can like appear and disappear based on like their deadlines. Whether you'll only see them if they're an active opportunity, or if you've saved the grant, you'll still see them if they have been archived, and it'll just say like this grant is expired if you haven't applied to it in your list. Yeah. Any other questions about that?
No, that's great. Good to know. I've never used that before. So
yeah.
Great.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think that's kind of the main features. I mean, we've tried to, it's fairly simple to get the hang of. If anyone has wants a one-on-one like help getting set up, I can definitely put you in touch with our onboarding advisor, Maud, if you haven't already spoken with her, and she'd be happy to help you get set up with your free trial if you haven't done it already. So because that can be helpful. Yeah, thank you, Meredith. Anything else? Yeah,
no, that's great. I've been actually able to answer the questions as they've been coming up so far. Does anyone else? We're a decently small group. You're welcome to unmute yourself or just add your chat box question now if you have it. Yep, it's helpful to know because I even am not doing a good job of tracking grants as we submit them. Like I've had one client for 3 years and have submitted a ton of grant opportunities, and we always come at the end of the year of being like, well, what have we done? Which ones are still pending? And it's always this like race to try to go figure it out, and it's silly. So this is a good reminder to actually just like move that project and all that history just into here and always have it running to find new grant opportunities.
And that way you don't have to, go back to an old spreadsheet to see if you've applied to a funder in the past. You just click on the grant and you can see in your history like what your history with that funder is. And we are, like I was mentioning, happy to get you started by like dealing with your spreadsheets because it can be time consuming if they're pretty long to get all that information like uploaded, and that's free. Like we do that for free.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, one of the students just asked a question that I have a question about as well. What features are in the pipeline that you are most excited about? that are going to be rolling out sometime in the future?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of big projects in the pipeline. Let me think. I would say one of the things we're working on is building like a really solid relationship with the IRS so that we can code all of their the foundations that don't have active grants, so invite-only funders, and allow you to be matched with them in a different way as well. So similar to how we match you with active grant opportunities, you'd have the option of also seeing like what kind of funders match you that don't necessarily have an active grant opportunity, but you could maybe foster some sort of relationship with. So that's something that we're working on right now actively. Let's see, we're also working on making our quick find super detailed so that you can search by a bunch of different parameters versus just the funder name. We are working on, like I was mentioning, bringing in like local government grants and just kind of being like even more comprehensive than we currently are. And the other thing I would say is right now, like I was mentioning, if you invite multiple users to the account, everyone kind of shares the same account. But one thing that we really want to do is give users kind of their own separate account within the account. So you would be able to like share tasks to specific users. So let's say like you work on a team with like 2 different grant writers or 3 different grant writers, you can assign grants to different people. They would be able to have like their own dashboard and see like what tasks they have upcoming. And so kind of like user specific accounts that would allow you to work even better as a team. That's something that we're also working on and would work well with grant writers as well, for freelance grant writers who want to have like more separate accounts for their clients. So I would say that's another thing I'm really excited about and that we get a lot of requests about. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. So it's funny, JW, I just had the same question. Do you have any current or potential integrations with project management programs like Monday or Asana?
Great question. Not currently. That's also something we get a lot of requests about. So it's definitely something that I think we will explore after we get through some of our big projects that we have in the pipeline. I think that integrations is probably one of the next pieces of the puzzle. We get a lot of requests for project management tools and also obviously CRMs like Salesforce, so that you can merge more easily like your grant and funder data with like your donor database in general. So right now you would have to use like the reporting feature to kind of download as a CSV your funders and then upload them to something like Salesforce. But yeah, currently we don't have any integrations, but it's something that we foresee doing in the future, definitely. We're also like extremely open to feedback. So you can't see it on my account because I'm an admin, but normally if you log into your Instrumentl account, there'll be like a little chat bubble at the bottom right-hand corner. And so anytime you think of something that would make your life easier, message us about it and we add it to we have like a living, breathing, actually Asana product board that we use to kind of prioritize projects based on how like requested they are. So it definitely helps to kind of put your vote in if there is something that like would be particularly helpful to you and make your life easier as a grant writer. We're very interested in hearing what that is.
Totally agree. Yeah, my team, we just made the switch to Asana as the team gets bigger to manage grants, and I know Monday is essentially the same thing, and it's an awesome tool too, JW. So yeah, we're finding that that's going to be where we spend a lot of time to keep track of everything. So it would be really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
There's some questions I can answer half of, and then I'll need your help. Carol's wondering what the monthly fees are, which I can answer that much. $75 a month if you have a year membership, and it's $82 a month if you don't. And you can have 10 projects maximum. But I forget, because I just emailed Gary about this. If you wanted more than 10 projects, what does that again cost? I forget.
So we actually just made a switch. It's actually a maximum of 5 projects right now on an account that you can have on one account. And if you want additional projects, it's $5 a month additional per project. So that's how, and it goes for beyond 10 as well.
Got it.
But if it's beyond 10, you can contact us because we can, discuss like a really large account and do something a little more custom for you. Usually we don't find that too often.
Yeah, and then I think, another question from one of my students, and this makes up a lot of us actually, are, they're coming at this from all volunteer-based organizations and boards. So I don't know if there's really a way to answer this or more of it's just feedback, but they're all in on the value of Instrumentl, but they're struggling to get the volunteer board to see the value in paying for that when they've never, they're kind of wondering, is there some sort of like 6-month period for these small nonprofits or these new freelance consultants that could get started so that they can prove it and be able to, export the report and show like, hey, here's the 8 grants we applied for. So I think that that's something that just a bunch of them are struggling with because they're dealing with like, I know they're small, but they hope to be growing and staffing up, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we work with a lot of small and volunteer nonprofits, and right now, like, we don't have anything like that in terms of like a 6-month like trial or something like that. But most of the time, I would say those organizations will start off on like a monthly basis, and that way you can pause or cancel your account anytime. If you only apply for grants like a couple months out of the year, if you're very small or you're just getting started and you want to kind of do a search and then apply to some grants to prove like the value and then come back to Instrumentl, all of your data will be saved. So you can always just pay for like a month or 2 and then come back when you're ready or when you've been able to show the board how valuable it is. So we did design that so that you could, have that flexibility if you were just getting started or you didn't have the ability to invest for a full year. And then the other thing that we're more than happy to do with boards, because we know it can be tricky, is give them a tour as well. So if you have you want us to give your board president like a tour of Instrumentl or kind of try to show them, the value, we're like more than happy to do that. Like in addition to the person who created the free trial account, we can do additional tours. So just let us know if that's helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's good for everyone to that's a good point. The data is not going anywhere. So if you hustle for 6 weeks or 4 weeks and you crank out a bunch of your proposals, Carrie, and then get the impact, show the impact, and be able to then I think you'll be able to paint your case. We've had a lot of community, the other thing you might check out is, what was her name? Bree Wallace is with the Ninilchik tribe, and she actually ended up putting together this little flat sheet. You'd probably like to see it, but she put together this like why the community should buy a membership to Instrumentl, because she was told no the first and second time she asked, and then she put together this like here's why and here's the business case and presented that, and it was like instantly approved. So I think sometimes it was how it's presented, the request, so it's really like, no, I'm not just like asking to add costs, I'm asking because there's a good investment reason to do so.
Yeah, and we're happy. We also have like materials like a demo video and like a 1-pager, so you can always ask us for additional material if you want like some prepared things to share with your board. In addition to, you're always able to kind of try do a presentation of your free trial to them as well, and we're happy to do that too. But yeah, we're happy to share stuff like that.
I think definitely bummed to hear projects went from 10 to 5 because a lot of times it's really fun just to set up the different searches just to even for your own personal interests and just to explore and learn.
You can always, edit your existing projects if you edit a project that you have active, like your saved grants, nothing will change. So it'll only be your matches that change. So I guess for exploratory purposes, that could work as a hack.
Definitely. Okay, cool. Anybody else have any questions? Well, easy. Sweet. Well, thank you so much for giving us a behind the scenes update on how the tool works. It's a good reminder for me to start using it well beyond just as a research tool. So I think, yeah, thank you. Everybody's blowing up on the thank you page. So thank you very much.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Cool. Sweet. All right. Well, on that case, I will stop recording. Thank you again.